It is story time with KSHSAA Covered and one of the staff writers, Brent Maycock, joining us here on the show. And hey, Brent, you had the opportunity and the privilege to write up the article on CJ Hamilton, longtime coach for Silver Lake, and was one of the part of the induction class in 2025 with the KSHSAA Hall of Fame. So, like for you, like I know you have written and covered a lot of big events and stories and big names in your career, but when you got a guy like CJ, 40 plus years at one institution, all-time winningest coach, a bucket full of state championships. In a good way, is there any sense of maybe like extra pressure to get that article right when you're writing something like that up?
Yeah, I think anytime you're talking about somebody with that historical sense to them about them, just the greatness that it was and the magnitude at which of what he did at Silver Lake. Yeah, I think there's always pressure anytime you write a story like that. I feel pressure anytime I'm writing any kind of story, if it's somebody retiring or going into Hall of Fame, because you want to capture their legacy in that story. And so, yeah, when I was writing it up this morning, in fact, just sitting there going through, okay, how best is the way for me to go about tackling this story. And so I went out and met with him. It's the first time I'd seen him in face to face in like 5 years, and just how sharp he still is. He could still go out there and roll up 9, 10, 11 win seasons
Yep.
in today's game. I mean, he was talking about it, and he was using terms with me like avatar and things like that. And it's like, this guy's 73 years old and he's talking avatar. I mean, he is still so sharp and so involved with this game that I think he could step back out on the field and still add to that legacy if he could.
I mean, you look at some of the accolades that you're outlining in your story. I mean, the obvious ones with the 8 state championships, all-time wins, 447 wins, over 100 playoff wins through KSHSAA. Does he get a sense, and he's probably very humble about it, but does he get a sense of where he's at and what he was able to accomplish at Silver Lake?
I asked him about that, and he said, "Yeah, I know the number, but the number really isn't what sticks out to him. What sticks has stuck out with him all this time is just the interactions that he had with his players and with his assistant coaches, which was one of the amazing things was his assistant coaches that were with him. They were with him for not just 5, 10, 15. We're talking 20, 25, 30, close to 40 years. Some of those guys, Warren Bledsoe, Mark Workman, Lauren Ziegler, they were with him for so long, and that was a big part of what made Silver Lake successful, is because those kids would come back year after year, and you have the same coaches, same expectations. You know what they were going to give. And so, in talking with CJ, it was those interactions that he cherished the most. And he talked about some of the other coaches that he used to coach against, and how some of those guys aren't here anymore. Roger Barda and Mark Ludke both passing away this summer, also coaching legends in this state. And he said, just having those interactions with those people, those were the things that he remembers the most. He doesn't remember the games in particular. He couldn't tell you the scores, but he can remember, moments in practice, or a moment in this, or a moment in that. That's what really stuck out to him. And since he retired, he has battled so many different health issues. He's had his right leg amputated from his knee down, and dealt with a whole lot of medical issues, that he was basically isolated in his house for 2 years. And getting back
Wow.
out and being able to now get back out and go to the games on Friday nights. I mean, that's CJ, and that's what he loves. And he says, that's what he really remembers the most, is the interactions, not the championships, not all the records. It's the interactions that he had with the Silver Lake players and community.
We talk of CJ Hamilton as, this football legend, which he is, and really it's just a coaching legend because, I mean, he was really good just overall. Like, I mean, you talk about, even when he first got started at Silver Lake in the 70s and 80s, Brent, like the baseball state titles as well as Silver Lake. So, I mean, the guy could just simply coach.
Oh yeah, the baseball titles were. Oh, by the way, he also won three
Yeah,
state
exactly.
baseball titles, and then was an assistant coach for Alan Cunningham for a number of years, as Alan was racking up more state titles for that program. So yeah, he's been involved in so many different aspects, and in the weight room, and really making that a part of Silver Lake's culture there, to where it helped all their programs. And so he's always kind of been a little bit ahead of his time too, I think, in the way that he looked at the game and saw the game. Silver Lake went to a passing attack well before that became the in vogue way of offenses attacking things nowadays. They were doing that 30, 40 years ago as using the passing game as a legitimate way of balancing out their offense. So, yeah, he's just, everything he's been involved with, he's had greatness with, and that's just kind of how he is. I mean, he's somebody that his mind's always working. He's always trying to figure out a way of how to do this better or how to do that better. And that carries over, to whether it was football, whether it was baseball, whatever it was. I mean, the guy would be just an incredible resource to sit down with and pick his brain, because I still think, today he says when he goes out and watches the games on Friday nights, he's still looking at it from an analytical aspect, not just as a fan.
Hey, Brent, appreciate the time, and been enjoying the articles you guys been pumping out. You and the rest of the crew, keep up the good work.
All right, I appreciate being on. Thanks, Cole.
That is Brent Maycock, one of the KSHSAA Covered staff writers, joining us for Storytime.